Again, if I mess things up, I could be sending some poor dude to the gallows or a life of misery.
But what if she like prays?
Oh my God. Oh my God, you just want to open up all the cans of worms. Okay, here's the thing. One of the jobs I did before I became a licensed private investigator, I was head of security for a very large congregation, for a very prominent religious leader. It was a mega church. Fortunately, him and his wife were two of the most gracious people and actual godly people I've ever met. His wife was probably the most gracious woman I've ever met. Like super nice people. They would do anything for you. But I was able to interact with a lot of the gospel superstars that people worship today. And here's what I can say. Most of them, 90% of them, they're living like devils while they're trying to tell you to live like angels. So if you have a woman and you meet a woman in church because you think you're getting something better than outside of church, I got bad news for you, bro. You're not getting anything any better. You're just going to get a really self-righteous individual that's going to pretend that they are better, not necessarily. Or you're going to get a recycled 304 that wants a break from the treadmill, and so she goes to church to find refuge and find some poor schmo that doesn't know about her past. And again, these might sound like harsh words. However, I don't make a habit of trying to butter people's backsides. I have to give people the truth, and sometimes it's ugly, sometimes it's difficult to hear, and people will hear me say that and they think I'm anti-Christian. I'm not anti-Christian. I am a Christian. I'm not always a very good one. I'll admit it. I'm not always a very good one, but what I object to is people being fooled and using God and church and religion as a way to trick people. And one of the people, some of the groups that women get tricked too, but men are tricked way more often. And so a woman going to church, what does that mean? Does that look? Here's the thing. I was head of security. I would see women at the club the night before on Saturday night. They'd still be in their club clothes, church on Sunday morning.
Wow.
Still be in the club clothes. So church on Sunday morning. They're backing that thing up and doing whatever else Saturday night.
Yeah.
Sunday, they're a holy moly. Right. Like one of my aunts used to say. So, a holy man. And so, look, and that's not to say that they're worse, but what I'm saying is that they're not better.
Right.
You still have to, you can't, here's the thing. You cannot use religion or religious affiliation as a vetting method. All right, it's because I've seen the absolute opposite. In some instances, I've seen women in church act way worse than women who don't go to church at all. So, and part of that is there's a belief that you're getting something better, so it hits harder when you find out.
They don't see it coming.
No, man. And it's like they're stepping into a freeway and that truck is right there and they just bam. And all of a sudden when they realize it, when they come to me after they find out something's wrong, usually like we talked about before, they're in crisis mode. The way to avoid that is understand her past. That's the best peek you will get into her future. And so when we talked about earlier, if you can live with, nobody's going to be perfect. If you can live with her worst that she's ever done, then you have a better chance of weathering whatever storm you might have to going forward. But if you don't know what her worst is, you're not able to make an informed decision. And what I try to do is give guys an opportunity to make an informed decision, because that's all any of us should ever want. If you got a woman with, like that PPI inspection for the Lamborghini or Ferrari or G-Wagon, you got to do some homework on the G-Wagon. But if you think you're getting a car that has 10,000 miles, but it's the speedo's been rolled back. How much wear and tear has been on that engine, the chassis, the electronics, the interior, the upholstery, everything, and compare that to, and again, people will get all upset, but at the end of the day, I know a lot of women will give the reply, a woman's past shouldn't matter. Well, I'm sorry, sister, it does matter to men. It may not matter to you, but it matters to men for so many different reasons. One reason is your reputation. I actually know guys who have married the neighborhood pass around, but didn't know they were the neighborhood pass around. And they found out after they got married. Now imagine how that guy feels. knowing that he has a woman that everybody has been with.
How did he find out? I mean, because I feel like women will snitch. Men just do not snitch. Like, we were talking about that earlier, but like they could be banging another dude's what they want.
Well, in this particular case, he hired me because he thought she was cheating.
Was she?
And yeah, she was. And I was like, and this was easy work. And I was like, yeah, dude, she's probably. I said, I'll look for documentation, but yeah, she probably is. He's like, well, how do you know? I said, everybody slept with her, man. He said, really? I said, dude, I slept with her. Like everybody got.
So you got hired for someone that.
Yeah, and it's like, and normally you wouldn't just come out and say this, but it's like, okay,
it's so crazy. Women can be with like 100 dudes and none of them will snitch.
No, well,
they do not.
Well, they will say something if it's their homeboy.
Yeah.
If it's their pal, they'll say something. Now, you get different reactions from guys. Like, I'm a PI. I've given people documentation. Like, yeah, she's cheating. No, I don't believe it. Like, dude, you hired me to get this. This is like literally. I got video.
Why am I here?
I got video of a woman getting bent over, and cheeks clapping and all the rest of that stuff. And the dude was still like, well, that doesn't look like her. Like, yo, come on, dude.
Did
what's
he
like, dude, like, come on, bro.
Yeah, I was just telling someone this the other day. When a guy wants to simp, you cannot stop him.
No.
It's some lessons you just got to learn the hard way.
Yeah, and so he hired me because he thought she was messing around. And I didn't know this guy before they got married. I met him after he hired me. And so I was like, I was like, well, yeah, she probably is. And he was like, well, how? I said that everybody's been with her, man. Like, she was just that. Like, literally, she was just very generous. Let's just put she was very generous with her time and her presence. And so for him, that was a bitter pill. It was a really bitter pill to swallow, man. Because I mean, imagine somebody that when and again, I wrote about this called a woman as a brand ambassador. So very rarely is a man a woman's brand ambassador. Typically, the woman is going to be the man's brand ambassador, meaning she represents you. She represents, hopefully, the best part of your judgment, right? And so because you're bringing this person in, and they're representing your name, your family, not just you, but your mother, your father, your family name in general, your children. She has access to your money. And so, all these other things. And so if you get that decision wrong, that's going to say a lot to people, not necessarily because you did it on purpose, but that's going to say a lot to people about you as a man and your ability to make decisions, is if you marry the town pass around. Now, some guys are comfortable with that. Hey, do your thing, but most guys are not.
How do you categorize women? So I'd imagine when you're doing, like when I did enough interviews, you kind of start to see like patterns and trends, and like you kind of start to group people. Is there a way that you do that with women?
Like from what, like will she cheat, or what type of, what's her past?
Yeah, like, I don't know, women, it could be by profession that they do this. It could be by a school. It could be, like, I don't know. I'm just curious, over the years, how long have you been doing this for?
I got my license in 2000. Well, it was actually before 2009, but there's a 2-year internship, so it was really 2007. But 2009 is when I got the full license after I completed the internship. Okay. So I've been doing it since then.
So you have to have patterns that you've seen. Like, yes. If I've learned anything, is that people aren't as special as they think, and most people are statistics and do fall in, like, it's kind of like the hoe and the simp in church. That's one I've seen. Yeah, that's a ton. So with women, how do you categorize them typically?
Well, I'll look at it this way. I look at women the same way most guys will evaluate women, as a straight male, a healthy, aggressive, heterosexual male. First category is would I or wouldn't I? But more importantly, before then, would she or wouldn't she? So I can talk to women and tell within a few minutes, or even just watch them to tell if they're available very, very quickly. Some women just aren't available. You know what I mean? And it's not necessarily to me, but whoever, right? So one of the things I look for is, the attention hounds, the women that are constantly, not just the way they dress, but they're constantly looking around to see who's watching them. And they're looking for that attention. If they get that attention, sometimes they're looking for engagement after that attention. And so that's a big thing. And again,
So you'll follow a girl and see if she's like looking around for attention.
Not even if I'm following them, just women I meet in general.
Okay.
Just because I observe, I watch everything. And sometimes it's a little bit of a curse. And sometimes I'll notice things that I don't even want to see, but I'll see them, just because of my past, and just my brain is wired.
Right.
My brain is wired to find things that people are trying to hide. It's been like this since I was a kid. Again, sometimes it's a little bit of a curse, just because you don't want to know everything about some people. Sometimes you just want to think they're just an ordinary person, and then I'll see things like friends of mine and their wives are fitting in some of these patterns. I'm just like, oh man. I was like, what do you say? Because you know both of them.
Right.
So what do you say? What do you do? And so I had a recent thing. I'll ask your opinion on this.
Okay.
I had a recent thing. I asked the internet on X, what would you guys do on my dog walks? I typically walk my dogs, if I'm around, 3 times a day. And excuse me, I'm sweating. I've always sweated a bunch.
Oh, it's the studio
sweat,
too.
yes,
These things tend
also
to get hot.
I sweat like a person who's in the desert. So sorry.
So
I don't want to blind anybody with my shiny bald head. But so here's what happened. I'm walking my dogs, take them to a park, right? And it's by one of the tennis courts. We got a bunch of tennis courts in my neighborhood. That's when you know you're in a good neighborhood. If you don't have any basketball courts but tennis courts, you're in a nice neighborhood. So with one of my neighbors goes on power walks in the middle of the day. She walks to the park and gets in a car. And I was like, but she couldn't see me. I was actually picking up dog doo-doo. Be responsible. Pick up your dog.
Okay.
Pick up your dog doo-doo. Don't be like that. And so I was like, that wasn't her husband. You know what I mean? So I was like, okay, and so I let it go. Another time I see her get picked up, same pattern, same car. And so, and this happened more than once. And so I hung out and then saw him drop her off. And then she proceeds on her power walking thing again and goes back home. And I was like, not her husband. Husband's at work, providing a great living. He's a surgeon. So she hired, she married the high value guy.
Right.
And the guy who picked her up wasn't a brokey. He was driving a 7 Series Beamer. So,
what was she 1 to 10?
Looks wise,
8, I'm guessing.
she's a little bit higher, man. She's
9.
like at 8.5, 9, man.
Okay.
Like she's, I would eat, if she wasn't married, I would eat sushi off her naked backside.
Okay.
She's that attractive.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Is that descriptive?
Yeah. Okay.
I'm the king of analogies, you'll find. And obviously I don't mess with I stay away from married women. And so I said, okay, what would you guys do? And I got a range of answers from, you have to tell him. I know the guy.
How well?
But we're not like pals. I've smoked cigars with him, with other guys in the neighborhood a couple of times while we're drinking scotch and smoking
This
cigars.
has happened to me before, and if they stay together, it's so awkward.
So
because then the snitch is the bad guy.
So what would you do? Yeah, exactly.
Nothing. Sorry, there was a time where I would have, but I'm sorry. Too many of you simps, it's bit me in the ass that I gotta let you guys suffer.
And some guys are like, you got to do it, and this is the bro code. Okay, I get the bro code thing, but I still got to live in that neighborhood.
Exactly.
I still have to live in that neighborhood. So here's how I handled it.
Okay.
Again, and one of my strong suits is problem solving. Right. And so I love solving problems. I love finding creative ways to solve problems. So what I did was I said, okay, I clocked the times that she would be there. It was right around the same time every day. I started booking the tennis court around that time and inviting one of the neighborhood older guys in the neighborhood that plays. This guy is even though the guy's in his 70s, man, but he went to college on a tennis scholarship. Dude, this guy is such a ringer. Like he'll have you running around the court all day. So I invited him to go play tennis. I booked the tennis court, and I positioned myself so that my back was to the pickup point, and he was facing the pickup point. And so, we're going back and forth. He's telling me how much I suck at tennis, which I suck at tennis. I suck at golf. I still love both of them.
But that wasn't her husband, but the guy knew her husband. Well,
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, okay. If he knew him well.
Yes,
that's
he's
smart.
known him for a long time.
So you get the friend to do it for him.
Yeah, so and then he stopped and was like, I turned around, I go, hey, is that such and such? He's like, yeah. And he's got this really concerned look on his face. I was like, oh, all right, I think it's your serve. And he's like, and I just left it at that. And he dealt with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I didn't tell him. I just put him in position to see.
Yeah.
Even though the guy wasn't the client, some people say, oh, I'm a snitch. Okay. Technically, I'm a professional snitch.
No,
that's what I do for a living. You know what I mean? I'm constantly diming people out.
That's smart, because then, if you tell them the problem is, one, they might not believe you, and then it's awkward for you.
Yeah.
Two, they do believe you, and then they fight, and then they tell them that you're the person that's what happened to me. I told, and then they fought. And then they stayed together. So I was I'm like, okay, you know what? Yeah. I'm like, suffer. Yeah. I don't care.
Yeah. And so that's how I handled that that particular thing. And because I was like, man, you hate watching guys dangle. You know what I mean?
Right.
Over a volcano, and you can save him, but you don't do anything to save him. And so I let his friend, because that guy's really good friends with him. I know him casually. I know the other guy better. Him and I smoke cigars all the time.
So did he find out? Did he tell the husband?
From the gossip I got in the neighborhood, I never asked the older guy what happened or what he did. But the gossip I got from the neighborhood is that he did indeed find out what was going on with his spouse.
Are they staying together?
No.
No, they're getting divorced.
No, he's bouncing.
Yeah.
Apparently,
he's probably screwing a nurse, anyways.
Well, apparently this was her college boyfriend.
No way.
That she told him not to worry about.
No.
It's always the guy. It's always the guy they say not to worry about.
I'll tell you a story from school. So I was on a team with a girl, and I transferred in. And before I even knew her, she dated this guy freshman year. And they didn't even date that long, 2-3 months. But I guess she was kind of stuck on, you know how it is. She was stuck on him forever. Senior year, she has a new boyfriend. And we were at, it's called a day party, a darty. It was St. Patrick's Day or something. And I'm waiting to go to the bathroom, right? And I'm like, why is this taking so long? It's taking forever. And she walks out with the guy from freshman year. And her boyfriend came to the party later and had no idea. They're still together to this day. Ooh. And you know what makes it worse is she wasn't a whore. She wasn't you would expect, there's different girls on our team that you would maybe expect that from, but she did not, at least as far as I knew, she did not have the reputation of sleeping around with a bunch of people. So this guy, I'm like, he would have no idea, because she she had a good reputation. I couldn't even believe it. Man. And I was not going to be the one. I'm sorry, fella. Too many of you guys. You know how mad they get at me for being because there's guys who will say, they want a virgin wife, or and I say, guys, 2 bodies. I'm like, good luck. On, and then they tell me I'm evil. They're like, oh, well, that's just you, or that's just you, it's just the women you know. And I'm like,
look, guys, and
it's just women on podcasts.
Look, here's the thing, man. Finding, if you do find a virgin, I actually know a guy, and we talked about this briefly. You find a virgin, she was using her virginity and her sexuality as a method of control over guys that she was messing with, literally holding it over their heads like the sword of Damocles. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And these guys were all chomping at the bit, and she was just playing these guys like a fiddle. Guys, get over the whole wanting a virgin thing. It's not going to happen. If a woman tells you that she is a virgin, odds are that she's lying. Mm-hmm. When you talk about the data, whenever they show these polls. Only 20% of women who were polled said they were cheating. Oh my God. Yeah. Okay. You believe them, right? You guys believe that nonsense?
And the workarounds, it's like they'll give oral and then say that doesn't count. That's the virgin. I found 5 types of virgins. 1 lying, 2 workaround virgin. They do. And I was on the phone. I talked to this lady the other day, and I was like, I don't know how these guys believe these women when they're like 27 or 28 that they're virgin. Okay, like 19. Okay, but like 27, what was she doing for the past decade? Yeah, and then she was like, oh, but I was. And I was like, don't make me do this. And I was like, and I told her, I'm like, really, you did nothing else? And she's like, oh, well, of course I did other. And I was like, come on.
And again, maybe like, some guys think that if a woman gives throat hugs, that she's still a virgin. Sorry, bro.
Yeah, but if you gave 3 throat hugs at the same time, are you still a virgin? Come on, that logic makes you can get an STD from it. So like you can get an incurable STD, but you're a virgin. Get out. You don't understand. Like, I had to interview 1,000 women, and I was just so done by the end. I'm like, are you? One girl on the show said she was a virgin. Before the show, she told a different guy on the show that like she was telling him about this day, her situationship, and he on the show was like, you just told me about it. And then 3, the ones that use it as marketing and they can't give up, like the Lolo Joneses. I don't know if she, but let's say she was telling the truth, like she couldn't give up the clout for being a virgin. So like,
and like she's destined to be alone. Because she's just, she seems like kind of a weirdo. Yeah. And that's what you're going to get if you get a woman in her 30s or 40s who's a virgin. She's going to be strange. To maintain that long, she's got to be unusual.
And you talk to the guys, and you're like, "Oh, strange is okay." I'm like, "Trust me."
No, you
it's
don't
not
want
what you think.
Yeah, you don't want a weirdo wife, and like okay, or like I've talked to women who, have let people swim in the Hershey Highway. Let's just say, right?
I don't get it.
Back door.
Oh, back door. Okay.
You never heard Hershey Highway?
No.
Oh my God! You're talking to all these people. You never heard that terminology?
No one's used that.
You never heard a G-Wagon?
No, I knew I knew I've heard G-Wagon.
But what is G-Wagon? You know what it looks like?
I wouldn't be able to identify it. I don't pay attention to cars. I just don't care.
And you never heard Hershey Highway?
No.
I'm the first.
I know what a Honda Civic is.
God, well
great mileage.
Well, that's what Hershey Highway means. And I know women that have done that. Like guys do that, and they're like, "Oh, I'm a virgin." And
are you?
Sorry. Probably not. But there are some women that believe that. There are surgeries that women can get.
Oh my God. Let it go. Just be a hoe. Let it go.
There are surgeries.
You know what I mean? Porn stars are getting married nowadays. Let's not let it hold you back. It's not gonna. There's someone that's gonna do it. I mean.
And there's one woman on the internet. I don't remember her name. I don't remember what podcast it was on. She was talking about how God restored her coochie. And then the other woman, the other one was like, wait, don't you have 5 kids?
Make it stop.
It's like, I'm sorry, man. But there are ceremonies in churches. This is why I say, watch out for the church con.
Yeah.
TradCon, they put the con in TradCon. And so they've got this whole praying and restoring virginity. Born again virgin. That's a crock of nonsense. That's not, okay. Where does it say that in the Bible? Some guy came up with that to market it, to get a way to market women that are coming off the streets, that they want to get married to these knuckleheads sitting in the pews who believe everything this guy with a suit on says because he's got a Bible in front of him. Whether he's preaching from the Bible or not, there's a whole different thing. But they're just going to believe, and they're gonna get sold a really bad used car.
Yeah.
And instead of trying to get women to understand that, look, there's going to be a day of reckoning for your behavior, just like men. There's a day of reckoning for you. You simp long enough, you're going to get bit. All right. If you're going down that 304 train or stroll or lane forever, at some point you're going to run out of tread on those tires.
I don't know. Riley Reid just got married to a decent looking dude.
Yeah, okay, he's a decent looking dude, but really, like this dude is an empty shell inside, man. Let's be honest, man.
Do you know what? I think what happens, and you could tell me if I'm wrong, guys look at the conservative women and then they start to not notice a difference. And so they just say, well, at least like Riley Reid, and I've talked about this on the show. I think she pulled it off because she brings in her hot friends to do threesomes. So like, yeah,
that would be a big selling point.
I know.
I guess, So she's adding value.
Yeah,
right? That's a value add, right?
I'll always ask the chat. I'm like, guys, for like a threesome once a week, would you put up with it? I'm not saying you should or you would, right? But eventually, there's going to be a taker.
Look, most, and I told you I did some work for some of the adult film industries in Los Angeles.
Right.
Not any film stuff. I was doing some protection work when I lived in California. Mm. And so a lot of these women that guys see on screen, if they saw them without their makeup, they would be horrified.
Yeah, I know.
Like seriously, they would screech like, "Oh my God, is that what she really looks like?" Yes, that's what she really looks like. Not to mention, most of them are drug addicts. Just because they get into that, just because they to kill the feeling of how they're throwing their life down the toilet, man. You know what I mean? And so there's a lot of drug addiction. There's a lot of really twisted sexual proclivities. A lot of them wind up with being nymphomaniacs, where they gotta have it all the time.